Hello and welcome to Lyric Hi-Fi. This is a video about a musical evening, but it's not like any musical evening. It's actually a little bit different. First of all, we have Gilad Tiefenbrun with us, and that's a big deal. And so instead of playing music and having lots of sad old men like me sitting around staring at the loudspeakers, I thought, well, let's find out a bit more about the company, about Lynn's design, about what they're doing, about their philosophy. And so we talked a lot and we just let the camera roll. So we've got it split up a little bit into three different parts. We're going to start off now with asking Gilad about how he got into hi-fi, how he got into music, and how he came from this background of the family to being the CEO. So we'll go over to Gilad Tiefenbrun and see what he has to say.
I'd like to introduce you to Gilad Tiefenbrun, who is possibly are you the MD or CEO?
Well, are you? I became the CEO when my dad stepped down from the board.
Okay.
So I was the managing director from 2009, and he was the chairman.
Right, okay.
And then he stepped down in 2019. Okay. So then I became the chief executive within the business.
Okay.
At that point.
So what you can say is it's all his fault. Everything that goes wrong at Lynn, it's down to you. However, I have to say, Lynn are in a bit of a roll at the moment with a few things that have come out with, some of which has been great offers for people, and a few people here have taken advantage of them this year, and some of which are new things that we see here that we're going to tell you about. But rather than doing lots of dems tonight, because any fool can do that, I mean, Ross and I'll do that for you anytime, we wanted to let Gilad talk more about Lynn and maybe give you more insight into the company. So if we roll way back before you were there, you've got this, what shall we call it, this cross to bear, this
poison chalice
of following your father in this business. But it was my experience about hi-fi companies that pass things on to their children is that they sink without a trace within a few years and then sell it off for nothing to a Chinese company.
Uh-huh.
So, first of all, I mean, obviously I have great respect for your father, so I'm not going to diss him, but I would make a joke about him. But following that, the process when you started at Lynn and moved through, can you tell us a bit about that? You know, because you didn't start as chairman, or managing director.
No.
So what happened?
And believe it or not, even as a little kid, seeing what my dad was doing, even what you were doing, because you're quite a lot older than me, Michael. So,
Okay. Let's see how this is going.
And so in the house, we'd have my dad and the people we worked with would come round and they would make little upgrades to the turntable and they would be playing them back and forward. I'd hear the same bit of Dark Side of the Moon 100 times and hear them getting drunk while they did all this. And I thought, that's really cool, you know. And I'm talking like even as young as I can remember, 10 years old, 8 years old, I remember thinking, I want to do that one day. And then, so as early as I could, I started doing odd bits of work in the factory. I built my own, I'm sure I had a lot of help, but I built my own can speakers and Axis turntable, which was in my bedroom from about the age of 12. And I just had the bug. You know, I was so into it. And I was aware even at that age that in my bedroom, with that Axis and a Nate and a pair of cans, that my hi-fi system was better than any of my friends. And I loved buying records and I loved having my friends around. They loved hearing records in my house. So it started right from then. And then on to an engineering degree, and I had a summer project as part of that, which I designed the passive crossover for the Cayley loudspeakers, working with Bill Miller, who was an amazing mentor. Then and thereafter, and is a lovely, lovely man. He was Lynn's chief engineer for 25 years. You'll know.
Oh yeah.
And then, as a new graduate, I did my first software engineering job at Lynn on the Connect system, and then I went away and came back 9-10 years later as head of R&D.
So you weren't just a spoiled brat of a...
Not just a spoiled
Not only, but also...
Yeah.
So, in those days, I mean, the weight of responsibility when you went to the R&D with Bill, were you aware of every history? Because, I mean, some of this stuff just seems absolutely ridiculous. No one before Ivor had said that turntables sound different. No one had said the source is the most important thing. If you don't get it off the record, the rest doesn't count. No one had said that.
Correct.
Right? No one also later on did things about isobaric loudspeakers, about things that were groundbreaking. Things like can loudspeakers, like, oh yeah, it was just a wee da-da-da, it's a Rogers thing. Yeah, but the way that was crafted to work over the range it did, that you know from your bedroom, was amazing. And later you go on to things like Connect systems. You go on to Bill Miller's K-class stuff. The first ladder resistor network in a volume control that worked. And like, well, nobody talks about that now, but I'm geeky enough to know these things. And I mean, the first company to think that spikes were a good idea and that things should be rigid. I mean, none of us came from anyone else in the entire industry. So did you know that you had this kind of big history? I know your father's big-headed and he probably told you he was the biggest, most brightest, most important thing. But were you aware of just how big that legacy was?
I was aware that my dad was and is an iconoclast, a man with very, very strong ideas that was challenging the conventional wisdom all the time.
Yeah.
And his values really shaped me and my siblings. And it was as I worked in London as an engineer and through that period where I learned how other companies worked and saw for the first time that they weren't all like Lynn.
Yeah.
You know, and the engineering departments weren't all equal. And that process improvement was not embedded into every place that you went.
How long were you away doing that job?
About 10 years.
10 years?
So and it was over that period then I started to, and through talking to my dad, understand really what the principles were that he applied at Lynn that made Lynn such a special company and such an enduring company.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So whenever you came back at that stage, what were the products you were working on at that stage?
When I joined full time in 2003.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was coming in on the back of a big mess, which was the Unidisc, which was a great product, but it had terrible reliability problems. And so the first year and a half was sorting that out. There was a lot of that. There was launching the 350s, which you have a pair of over there, which are Lynn's first fully integrated active speaker. The Chakra amplifiers were under development at that time, which were actually the last new standalone amplifiers we did until 2 years ago when we launched the Solo 800.
Well, everything from Chakra was a development of Chakra and
right.
better power supply,
Correct.
but the basic circuit layout,
which was Bill's design. Yes,
yes, of course.
So, yeah, I mean, I inherited a lot. I think my observation from joining Lynn in 2003 was it wasn't the R&D department that I'd left. There was problems. Bill had taken a step back along with the other sort of founders like Martin and people like that. And the next generation hadn't maybe really understood what it was all about. And the engineering department was a mess and people were despondent and demotivated. And within that first 9 months, I think I took over a department of 50 people and 20 of them left in that first 9 months. It was
well done, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I know. It was an absolute whirlwind. It was terrible. I mean, but it's one of those things where the people close to you are saying, do you believe in what you're doing? Are you doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Then stick at it. Yeah. And that included my dad, you know. And so I knew that I was modernizing that department. I suppose in a nutshell, if you think that the department I joined was all CD players. It was based off proprietary chipset, as all CD players were, because they had to be. We used Hitachi H8 processors. You had to pay $20,000 for every engineering seat. And I come from a world of what was to become the smartphone evolution, where everything was Linux and open source tool chains. It was a completely different world. So for me, I came back into Lynn and thought, well, Lynn hasn't really kept pace. At the same time, understanding that streaming was coming, and I'd said to my dad back in 2001, probably, why are you launching new CD players? There aren't going to be CD players when Lynn was launching the Unidisc. Because we were already streaming everything over our prototype 3G networks in our offices in London. So at that time, I developed an app for a Nokia phone. Colour screen Nokia phone, the first one on the market. And it would communicate with the Lynn system, and it would pull the metadata from the cloud and show you what CD was playing. So you'd see the album art and you'd see the tracks. And my dad thought that was interesting. And he said, oh, you can come along to CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas. We've got a booth there and you can show your app running there. I mean, they probably didn't call it an app back then, but that's what it was. And so I spent 3 or 4 days on the booth there, and press, retailers, customers all came by this booth and they all said the same thing. Why would anybody want to use a mobile phone to control an iPad?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, of course, my recollection at the time was that you were the one that was pushing this streaming revolution. And the streaming revolution that came along, there were many manufacturers getting in there that made something that sounded a bit worse than a CD player, and it worked, and that was a big thing, and the kind of thing, frankly, I let my children play with to pick music and things like that. But from my point of view, in a hi-fi system, it was all just complete rubbish.
It was, because they were starting with a computer and shrinking it into a music player. Whereas what we did, and this is so in amongst all these projects that I inherited, I started a little side project to develop our own streaming platform, but that was from the ground up. And so it wasn't saying, how do you take a Microsoft home computer or living room computer and make it a music player, or even Linux embedded and make a music player like that. It was saying, how do we get something that will deliver 24-bit music directly into the living room? And to be able to take that ground up approach is very my dad. It's a source first approach. It's starting from first principles, and it's saying, but what do we need in the hi-fi industry? We need something real time. We need something that's format independent, that can play the very, very highest quality formats, but ultimately can play anything. And when we launched the first streamer, which was the Climax GS in 2007, it only played FLAC and WAV. It only played high quality formats, even though everything was all about MP3 before that. And then when I do business school lectures, as I do once or twice a year, I ask the class, how much do you think we charged for that player? And they say, £100, you know. No, it was £10,000. And they can't imagine, why would anyone price a streaming player at £10,000? That was a Climax player, at the best of all of our technology in it, but most importantly, we knew there would be the most early adopting, most devoted Lynn customers who would say, you mean I can get 24-bit in my living room? I'll have that. And so that's how we started it, from the top. And that is also a Lynn thing, is that you introduce your best technology and your best products. And you go to your best customers first, and then you find a way to make that technology available to the rest of your customers. So there's those kind of principles that I learned from my dad, that by the time I was doing that, it was kind of already built into who I was.
Great. Okay, we're going to play just another track.
That's the first part of the musical evening about the company. Next, we'll go more into the products, specifically the turntable, and what Lynn have been doing, what they've been discovering, and how they've been moving that forward. Thank you so much for watching. Press subscribe and all of that. See you in the next video.